Alright, listen up. Welcome to the Geopolitical Shenanigans Bullet Camp. My name is Sergeant Butcher, and today we're discussing something even more badass than being good at Fortnite. And I'm talking about intercontinental ballistic missiles and the INF Treaty. So why is this important, you asking? First, because the INF Treaty would again place Europe between Russia and the US intermediate range nuclear missiles. Second, withdrawing from the INF Treaty allows the United States military to build up a formidable arsenal of missiles to challenge China and Russia. And third, the termination of the treaty will galvanize an arms race between the great powers and could threaten the future of a new START agreement. So buckle up, little Timmy, because we're about to take off.
So the US President Donald Trump announced on the October 20th that he intends to withdraw the United States from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, or in short, the INF Treaty. That agreement prohibits the deployment of nuclear and conventional ground-launched ballistic and cruise missiles with intermediate ranges, while the withdrawal will allow the United States military to build a formidable arsenal of missiles to challenge China and Russia. The treaty's termination will undoubtedly stoke a budding arms race between global great powers, and it could lead to the demise of other key arms control treaties, such as the New START agreement. In recent years, the United States has accused Russia of violating the INF Treaty and has tried to force Moscow to comply using sanctions and weapon development. The Russians, however, have refused to adhere to the United States' demands and have accused the United States of violating the treaty as well. These mutual recriminations have rendered the INF Treaty quite vulnerable over the past 2 decades. But until now, both parties considered the cornerstone arms control agreement, which halted a destabilizing buildup of intermediate-range nuclear missiles in Europe during the 1980s, too pivotal to withdraw from. But several factors have pushed the United States to its tipping point, including the growing power of China, Russia's continuing INF violations, and the ascent of ardent arms control skeptics in the White House, like the National Security Advisor John Bolton. It's possible that the United States withdrawal announcement is part of a last-ditch ploy to pressure Russia, as Bolton goes there to talk about the INF and other issues. But the Russians are unlikely to flinch and return to compliance. Indeed, Moscow is actually set to benefit from not being the first party to withdraw from the INF, meaning the demise of the treaty is almost inevitable. So going back in time, although the United States and the Soviet Union were the signatories of the INF Treaty, China has increasingly become a key consideration in the treaty consequences over the past 2 decades. Not affected by the INF limits, China has built up a massive land-based arsenal of short and intermediate-range ballistic and cruise missiles. This powerful arsenal allows China to challenge the United States and its allied forces in the Western Pacific. And China's growing military capabilities have caused increasing concerns for the Russian military, which lacks similar missiles. While Russia was willing to violate the INF by developing and reportedly fielding some missiles prohibited by the treaty, Moscow was not willing to be the first to abandon the INF outright. This is largely due to the much improved relationship between Moscow and Beijing over the past few years, which dampened the need of Russia to gear up too dramatically against China. The Kremlin has also been committed to retaining a moral high ground and protecting its reputation as a responsible actor by not being the first one to leave the INF. On the other hand, for the United States, that has begun designing banned weapons but has not yet violated the treaty, China's growing military might was really the largest driver behind the White House decision to outright withdraw from the treaty. The United States is now considering a major buildup of land-based intermediate-range missiles to challenge China, and does not want to be limited by the INF Treaty in any way. On October 19th, the New York Times reported that the US military is preparing to deploy ground-based versions of the US Tomahawk missiles in Asia as an initial counter to the Chinese. And the US Army in recent months has also been outlining its plans for developing and fielding ground-based systems with ranges exceeding 1,000 kilometers. So, what happens next? So, once unshackled from the INF Treaty, the United States will undoubtedly bolster its capabilities in its face-off with China. However, the demise of such a landmark arms control agreement will cause serious global repercussions. In the Pacific, China is likely to further improve and grow its armed forces to challenge the new US missile deployments. And Russia will no longer just violate the treaty with select developments and deployment of weaponry. It will likely refocus its resources on the build-up of a land-based arsenal of short and intermediate range missiles. The cost-effective nature of such weapons is a boon for Russia's increasingly resource-constrained military modernization program, which struggles to fund alternatives such as squadrons of long-range bombers. The end of the INF Treaty would also cause alarm in Europe. For the first time since the Cold War, United States allies on the continent would be situated right between Russian and US intermediate range nuclear missiles. Germany's foreign minister has already criticized the United States withdrawal announcement, and other US allies in Europe are bound to raise similar concerns in private and public. The issue will only grow as Russia builds up its intermediate range missiles on its western border, and the United States responds with its own build-up in Europe. Countries such as Germany are likely to oppose the United States deployment of such missiles in their territory. But other countries such as Poland and Romania could be more willing to house these missile units, especially if they guarantee an added US military presence in their territory. So, above all, the biggest consequence from the demise of the INF Treaty would be that it could jeopardize the New START agreement. So, what is the New START agreement? For those of you who don't know, it's the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, which is a nuclear arms reduction treaty between the United States and the Russian Federation. It was signed on April the 8th in 2010 in Prague, and after the ratification entered into force on February 5th, 2011, and it was expected to last at least until 2021. So under the terms of the treaty, the number of strategic nuclear missiles launchers would have been reduced by half. An interesting fact is that according to a Reuters report on February 9th, 2017, when Donald Trump first called his Russian counterpart, President Vladimir Putin, Putin inquired about extending the New START agreement. However, President Trump attacked the treaty, claiming that it favored Russia and was one of the several bad deals negotiated by the Obama administration. However, a messy breakup of the INF Treaty, coupled with further arms buildups, could be a serious threat to the New START longevity, especially since certain hardliners on arms control, such as Bolton, appear to be getting their way into the White House. The United States withdrawal from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty in 2002 already spiked tensions with Russia and China over the US anti-ballistic missile defenses. The potential collapse of both the INF and the New START will all but ensure the resumption of a major arms race between the United States, China, and Russia at all operational and strategic levels.
Whoa. I'm so woke now, man. This information woke me up more than this coffee did. You know, this channel's good. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna hit the like button. I'm gonna hit the subscribe button, and most of all, I'm gonna let the guy know what I think down in the comments below. So tell me, what are you gonna do?